Good morning, beautiful people of the center. Faith. There are quite a few phrases from the Bible that come to mind when I think of faith. One of them in particular comes from the story of Jesus talking to the centurion, where the centurion asks for a healing for a relative, and Jesus says something. Anybody? Not a person. Your faith has made you whole. And so for some people, that's an encouraging phrase, and for other people, it can be troubling because the question is, well, if I have faith, then that's where my wholeness will come from, and if I don't have the faith, then I won't have my wholeness, and what am I supposed to have faith in? And so it brings up a lot of questions that I think are good things to think about. Particularly the question of having faith. Am I being asked to believe in something that's not provable or that's beyond my experience, or then it can fight with my intellect? Or am I being asked to have faith in God, and what exactly is that? And that can be troubling, especially because some of the cultural images we have of what God is, and for some of us that may come from our early childhood training or our religions of origin. Dr. Chris Michaels, who's coming here in 2 weeks, on his webpage, he has a quote that really struck me when I was thinking about all of this. And he said, in order for us to progress as a people and create a more peaceful world, we have to give up the idea of a regional God with personal preferences. He is primitive and outdated. And that really lingered with me because I can see how challenging it would be to have faith and trust in a God who is regional. My nation only, my people only. Or in a God who has personal preferences. Men are better than women, for example. Or in a God, some of the words that I was exposed to as a child from my religion of origin, vengeful, wrathful, jealous, all terms that have origin in Bible references to God. So I can see how it would be difficult to have faith in such. Look, it would be difficult to have faith in a person like that. To trust a person who is vengeful. Well, actually, I suppose you can trust a vengeful person to be vengeful. You can trust a kind person to be kind. You can trust a jealous person to be jealous in the same way that you can trust a chair to be a chair. And you can trust electricity to be electricity. In other words, our experiences of people and things, well, it certainly does contribute to our ability to predict, and with a little more certainty, and we start to develop reasonable expectancy in life as we experience more of life, as things reveal their nature to us. I think that's why in the book, A New Design for Living, and this is the old cover, I think that's why in the book, faith and trust is connected directly to our experience of things. So as I've been reading through this, I've been reframing phrases such as, I have no faith in that. I've been reframing that to say, I have no experience of that. And it's a little step closer for me, bringing the matter of faith to a practical level. So if somebody says to me, as sometimes people will, oh, just have faith that such and such will happen, and it's such a stretch for me. Like, for example, if my leg is amputated and they say, just have faith that it will grow back, now I can say, instead of saying I have no faith, I can say I have no experience of that. And then the work for me becomes to broaden my experience and my exposure in life so that I expand what I do have confidence in. And I can call that faith. And certainly when I practice in this way, it's my experience that there will come a time, there come times when I have trust in things that go beyond my experience. There's that gap, and I can call that faith. I don't have the experience of it, but I trust it anyway. And when that arrives, that moment arrives, I may not be able to fully explain why it is I have confidence that I can do or expect what it is I want to do and expect. It's the result of accumulated proof over time, or it could be that I've been experimenting, practicing, observing, and I get to this point where I feel a certain confidence that I can take a little more of a chance. I can take that step, and it may not be based fully in good, rational thinking, but at the same time, it's not reckless because it is based in something. There's a gap. One of the things I love about the Center for Spiritual Living is that you and I are not asked to accept teaching on blind faith. We are not asked to take the testimony of other people and believe in it without inquiry. No, instead we are invited to become our own proving ground, for us to try and test. Do I feel better if I have a daily spiritual practice? If I say my prayers every morning, does that make a difference? That's for me to discover. Or do I have a sense of more resiliency and courage? Do I feel like I'm capable more as a result of sitting and accessing my quiet mind? You know, meditation daily, does it do something? Or how does my world change when I present myself in service, selfless service and volunteer? Does that change the world? How do I change when I develop a purposeful generosity? So those are the things. I test them, I try them, and then I become my testing ground. So personal responsibility, self-reliance, these are strong values in our teaching. And today I want to share with you that there is also another side to that. Certainly I'm responsible for developing my own trust, but it is also true that you and I can be beautifully inspired by those who are around us, by their courage. If somebody around me is courageous, maybe I'll think to myself, I can do that too. Or if somebody believes in me and sees a possibility for me to do something, sees a step that I could take and has faith that the step will land safely, even when I can't see it, sometimes that lifts me up to try. Especially when they believe in me when I can't believe in myself. And I think that is why possibly many faith traditions emphasize the importance of keeping spiritual company. Putting yourself in situations where the conversation leads upwards and not dragging you down all the time. To help balance things out, because both exist in the world, but to have a place where we can be affected, tremendously influenced by the practice and the courage and the love of others around us. I used to work in the market research industry in Hollywood, in the movies, and one of the things I learned about market researchers is they are tremendously interested in word of mouth. When advertising a movie, they are more interested in word of mouth. What you are going to tell somebody, they're more interested in that than even the power of an advertisement, because they know about you and me. You and me are more likely to go and see a movie if somebody we care about, where there's already a foundation of trust, tells us to go and see it, than we are if an advertisement tells us to go and see it. In fact, we may have already decided to not go and see a movie, and if somebody we care about says, yes, go and see it, I enjoyed it, we may actually soften and change our perspective. They know that. When the foundation of love and intimacy is already there, I am more likely to believe you if you see something that is potentially good for me, if you see a safe landing for a step to me, and you say to me, I'm more likely than if I have to look for it all by myself, especially if that foundation of love is already there. Now, I'm not saying that we should base our estimation of ourselves or the development of our faith and courage on what other people say only, but I am saying that the company I keep makes a difference. Now, you don't have to get up and abandon your family and friends if you've determined right now that there's so much negativity there. I'm just saying that you can make certain that some of the conversation that you have in your life, that some of it is with people who are engaged in spiritual practice. Because I believe that spirituality, courage, and faith, it rubs off on us just from being in close proximity with those people who it is strong in. We absorb it. And that's why I love the Center for Spiritual Living. It's one of the reasons I come, to take refuge in here, to absorb what is already. When I walk in the building, I start to change already. And among the many things that the center provides for us to enjoy, there are all of these opportunities for us to be together and interact and lift each other up through our conversation. And so many of the events are free. Like, I love the Stepping Stones bookstore free events. We get to hear from poets, artists, slideshows of spiritual journeys, musicians, authors, and we can interact with them and talk together. Or the free... The men's group has a monthly brunch where men can get together and have those conversations. Or free empowerment groups, or the meditation experiences that are free, like the Heart Coherence Meditation, and other social events like the picnic this afternoon, or other events like the Animal Blessing, or the art show, or the Spirit in Business. Did I mention free? Opportunities where we can show up. And like I said, when I show up from the world to my community, when I walk in, I begin to show up differently. Because already the conversation is shifting me. And as the conversation lifts me up, my aspirations lift up and my faith begins to get bigger. It reminds me of something I read about Buddhism, which is referred to as the 3 jewels of Buddhism. I think of it as the commitment a practicing Buddhist makes. And the first is to take refuge in the Buddha. And the second is to take refuge in the teaching of Buddha. And the third, the one I'm interested in today, is to take refuge in the Sangha. And the Sangha is a word that means community. And it's discussed in different ways, and one of the ways that community is understood is to take refuge in the community of beings who have attained a certain awareness, like enlightenment, and that by hanging out with them, those who are studying are encouraged and helped to attain the same. But community is also taken to mean the community of practicing Buddhists. And I thought about that for us. For us, to take refuge in the community, it means to hang out in the community of practicing metaphysicians, because it will lift you up. Hang out with people who have a practice. It will make a difference. So it brings me to a question for this morning. I'm asking myself, and I offer it to you. Who are the faith builders in your life? Who are the people in your life that by hanging out with them, just that, by hanging out with them, you feel better, stronger, more joyful, more creative, or whatever more comes out of hanging out? Who are those people? I've been thinking about that. See, tomorrow I'm getting on a plane and I'm flying to Seattle to present at the Ministers' Ongoing Education Conference. And I was remembering the first time I went to that conference as a participant and how better I felt from hanging around in a whole week-long conversation with people that shared those values, and I came away from it with a much larger idea, a much healthier idea about ministry. And among the gems that I took away from that conference was this one in particular. We were given the assignment to describe what our perfect day in ministry would be. You know, how does it start? What time does it start? And you can do that with any aspect of life. What are the activities, etc. And then once we took time to write that all out, we were asked then, and what is getting in the way of you having that? Well, you know, we got to put our heads together and think about it. And one minister in particular, and many people shared this, was saying she was getting all bogged down by the details and the minutiae and the drudgery and the heaviness of dealing with difficult personalities and people who were like stealing her energy, because at the time she was dealing with a very difficult situation in her community. And then I was surprised by the response of the teacher at the conference, because I was expecting him to give her strategies to deal with all of that. But instead, he just asked a very simple question. He said, who in your community, who in that community do you really enjoy? And when she was able to identify such a person, he asked, and when last did you go out for coffee with that person? And the minister said, oh, I see what you mean. I could call up and hang out and I could talk to them about this problem. And he said, no, don't hang out with them to troubleshoot. Don't hang out with them to pour out the problem. No, go and hang out with them because being in their company brings you joy. Take refuge in that and let that lift your conversation up and let it be the healing process all by itself. And it came so clear to all of us who had similar problems that, like she had, that her primary relationships at that time were focused on difficulty. And so it was taking her down, and there was no refuge from it for her, even though it was available. I remember one of my early teachers said to me, you should practice letting your conversations be more in heaven than they are in hell. And I'm remembering that today, to take to heart the value and influence of the people we love. Because I'm more likely to value and listen to and hear them when they say to me, hang in there, take that step, or whatever it is they say, because it's like the word of mouth in movies. When there's already a foundation of trust and familiarity and affection, then based on my experience of you in that situation, I'm going to place more weight and meaning on what you say. It's how it is. So I've got to make sure that I hang out with those people. You know, everybody's got their favorite story that illustrates something in their life. I've got several, and so when it comes to faith, I drag out the same story. So I'm sorry, it's probably your 20th time to hear it. This is the current version. It gets longer every year. It's the tightrope walker story. The story goes like this. There's a tightrope walker that walks across a canyon on a tightrope and all the way back and says to the amazed observers, do you believe I can walk across the tightrope and come back? And they say, yes, I do. And then he takes a wheelbarrow and he walks across the tightrope with the wheelbarrow and all the way back safely and says, do you believe I can walk across the canyon on this rope and come back safely? And they say, yes, we do. And then he gets one of his assistants to get into the wheelbarrow and he walks all the way across the canyon and all the way back balancing perfectly, and he comes back and he says to the observers, do you believe I can walk across the canyon with a person in the wheelbarrow and come back? And they say, yes, we do. And then he says to the crowd, so then who's next in the wheelbarrow? You see, it's worth repeating. And it is told to illustrate the difference between belief and faith, because between the two, there's a gap. Oh, and that gap. Whew. Because even though I may have watched him do it successfully several times, there remains that gap between my observation and experience and my knowing. There's something there, and it's tantalizing in its mystery. And I think it's what people are referring to when they say that they went out on a limb, no foundation of either experience or knowing, even though I've seen. And I think when we meet that gap, I think it is healthy and sane to be upfront and realistic and honest with ourselves. Like, for example, saying something like, I don't know if I'm going to be okay as the next passenger in the wheelbarrow. I have no experience of that. That's the gap. And I may decide to get in it anyway. And that's my decision, and when I do get in it, I may be trembling. And if I do get in it, I'm not counting on a primitive regional God with personal preferences who is vengeful and jealous to make it all work out in the end. No, I'm not. If I fall, it's not because I was rejected, I chose the wrong faith, or I'm bad, or I didn't do this. No, because I'm learning not to add meaning to stuff that isn't necessarily there. No. If I fall, it's because sometimes people fall. And I'm learning to get up and then determine whether or not to get back in the wheelbarrow or to turn in a new direction. See, sometimes people are traumatized by the fall. Why me? Why did I fall? What does it mean? What did I do wrong? What does it mean? And I say to them, it means get up. Again, it means don't stay there. You see, the God of my childhood, well, he was kind of like a superintendent of affairs, governing things with a mysterious set of rules I could never figure out. So I was so delighted when I read, this was the first book I read from the Center for Spiritual Living, A New Design for Living, because it reframed this word, this concept, God, in a way that I could get close to. I love how the authors say God is the intelligence that binds all of existence together. It's the same intelligence that is in me and around me, and I'm learning to develop an awareness of it. And it is an intelligence that has no preference and is not regional in that it is everywhere present all of the time, and it has no desire to impose a moral lesson on you and me. We just fall because that's sometimes what we do. And I'm learning, as we all are, to draw more upon that intelligence that is all around me and in and through us, have a relationship with it, I suppose, so that we can use it to decide when is it time to stay and when is it time to go, and when is it time to get in the wheelbarrow and when is it time to not. And that kind of intimacy and relationship, it requires Well, in relationship, it requires spending mindful time together. You learn your way through it, don't we? So I can't assume I know you when I meet you. I'm going to learn to know you. through my exposure and time, and through my open-heartedness to you. And I think it's the same with the intelligence that governs the universe. The potential is always there. I've got to make myself available to it, and that's when I experience it. I'm getting a lot of help out of the book of the month. I'm just starting to read it now. I don't know about you, but all these great books that are being recommended, I can't keep up with them. I mean, this was good, Calming Your Anxious Mind. I'm anxious about the reading, but I'm getting a lot out of this book, Calming Your Anxious Mind by Jeffrey Brantley. Like I said, I just started reading it, and it's all about the gentle practice of paying attention to your life purposefully, on purpose. And through the practice of being purposely present for your life, the idea is that we rediscover, we find again something that was always there, your calm mind, always there. And through regularly visiting this place, this calm mind, we discover other things, strength, resiliency, our center, and then over time, we have more confidence of its presence. We have faith in something that was always in us that we perhaps forgot about. Now, I'm paraphrasing the author because I'm just starting to read it now, but basically what he says so far is that in our busy lives, all the interactions, all the processing of information, all the decisions we have to make, it's so compelling that it seems to demand all the attention that we seem to have at any given moment, to the point where we lose sight of this quiet realm that is also in us. And then the less we visit our quiet mind, because so much of our resources is invested in coping, the less we visit our quiet mind, the more distant it appears to be, and we have this ever diminishing sense of it ever having been there. And we lack the faith that we will find it again. And what he provides for us in the book is the way back through gentle practice. Many of them you'll recognize. Beautiful reminder. And he says something in the book, if I'll paraphrase that, he says that when you and I, through practice, prove to ourselves that the time and attention committed to sitting in meditation is worth it because of what it gives us access to, you know, that beautiful, nourishing space, we will grow, I say, in faith and in trust. And out of that comes the reasonable courage to step when we meet the gap. Because we will meet the gap again. That's the way of things. And when we meet the gap, the space between where we are and the land that we desire to be in, well, we'll encounter normal, natural anxiety, doubt, second-guessing, fear. It's all part of the process. Except what changes is now that we will have taken refuge in our practice. And from that confidence, to meet the taking of the step in the presence of anxiety. So my second question for this morning is then, so what is your practice that you take refuge in every day? And if you have one, that's wonderful. And if you don't have one, no worries, because we've been planning our calendar for 2013, and the calendar with all the themes and topics, and it's going to be focused on spiritual practice. Practice, practice, practice. So every month we will be looking at a different spiritual practice, so whether that's meditation or prayer or journaling or chanting or by the end of the year, you will have had so many opportunities to think about and sample spiritual practice that it will be impossible for you to think of yourself as anything else but a practicing metaphysician. And people will want to hang out with you. I believe there is a capacity within us to be powerfully quiet and observant. And when we relearn how to go to that place and become a frequent traveler to it, a visitor in that land, we will likely experience a significant increase in our ability to meet life's joys and life's challenges with renewed understanding and courage and equanimity. I believe it. Let us pray. One life everywhere present, in and all through things, the energy of creation, the intelligence of being. That one I call God. Everywhere present in me and in you, in all things. As I take this in and everything that it means, I realize the awesome privilege it is to exist. And through this prayer, I am shedding old concepts of divinity, of faith, of believing, of prayer, of all sorts of things, so that my natural spirituality may present itself. And this word I speak for me, I speak for all people. So that superstitions of the past and sacred cows and inhibitions that have no foundation in love may gently and peaceably go their way, so that we may discover the truth of our being, that we are created in the image and likeness of the intelligence that governs the universe, made of it, made from it, made through it. And so as we dwell in this awareness then, things shift and move on their own. We realize together there is a awareness, an awakeness in us was already there. And a beautiful joy rises up at remembering who we are, a natural sense of pleasure at simply existing. We find ourselves, we find our love, and we share it easily. In deepest gratitude for this time of prayer spent together and for the spiritual laws of the universe, I simply let it all be, and together we say, and so it is. I invite you to breathe in with me and sigh. And with that sigh, a transition to the part of our service where we share together. I invite the ushers to stand. And won't you please take your gift in your hand and say after me, I bless this gift. I send it forth to heal and prosper. It does amazing work in the world. Whoopee. Ushers, please receive the gift.